Here I was concerned about my breaking one of my AFIB rules of not doing hard workouts or races on 2 consecutive days, and now on the second road race day, I'm promenading to the start, going up a wall that ranges between 10 and 16%. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek, and this is my story of what happened to me when I broke those AFIB rules. I'm starting at about 15 miles into the race. This is where the major action is going to start to happen. Now, we've already had action. We've had sorties put out mainly by the 60s, but nothing too dangerous at the time. This is a 62-mile road race with 2,800 feet of climbing. We have some climbing in the beginning, and we have the key climbing at the very end. As you notice, we have another breakaway attempt. A 60-plus rider went, and another 60-plus rider, a former teammate of mine who's now on Velo King, Scott Hollander, is going after him. Scott's style is to get away early in a race. Now, I'm not panicking about this because, one, there's no 65s up there, and two, this is my second day of racing, and I'll be getting into later on about my AFIB rule. My general positioning in these races is to stay near the front, but not obviously at the front. That way, if gaps do happen in the pack, that I'm on the correct side of those gaps. Okay, let's get into my AFIB rules and the choices that I made for this race weekend. The reason I decided to break my rule for this weekend and do this second road race on this next day is because they had a 65 plus category in it. Now I figured that we would be combined with the 60 plus category, in which we were. And another reason that led to my decision to do this race is because this race was also local to me. Since my form has significantly increased over last year, and with this being a tough road race, I figured this was doable for me. With my making this decision, it's not just showing up the race and doing the race and that's it. I had to do other things to help ensure that I didn't add any additional stress to my heart because of my decision to do the second race. And those things started the Friday before. Some of them are obvious, and some others of them you may be saying, I should be doing them, but I don't. But the key is, doing all those items helped me take stress off my heart. Shifting momentarily to the action on the screen, that brake was brought back. It's hard to get away on a descent. But that doesn't matter to Light Blue Jersey. About 20 seconds later, he goes again. So the first anti-stress thing I did on Friday was I packed everything. Packed everything for the two races. The kit that I was going to wear on the one day and the kit I'm going to wear on the next day. All the wheels that I needed, tools, etc., and that included food. I anticipated the food I was going to need to eat while I was on the road. Now, I didn't pack the second day's worth of food, but I prepped it so I could just pick it up and just put it into my bag. So basically, all I would need to do on Saturday after I got home from the race was just go to bed, take care of myself, and do all the other things I was supposed to do. Then on Sunday, get the food that I pre-packed, which includes sardines, of course, get in the car and drive to the race. Speaking of food, I didn't worry about weight. On Friday, Saturday, and a bit on Sunday, I didn't worry about calories. I wanted to make sure I had enough energy for that second race, not to mention the first race. The next thing was sleep. Get enough sleep. So that meant prepping all the stuff I had to do much earlier in the day, and even some of it starting the day before that. That way, because I was going to travel early in that race to go to the first race and also to the second race, I'd get in bed by 8 o'clock. As I think of it, I actually started my prep well before Friday. That whole previous week I had scheduled as an active breast week. In fact, it was similar to tapering for a goal race. I wanted to make sure that my fatigue was gone and that I was going to be ready for 2 days of hard racing. Jumping ahead about 6 minutes, we are on a set of rolling climbs. 60-plus Boyd Tarrant from Splunk Racing puts in an attack. Subsequently, Light Blue Jersey guy goes after him. He ultimately connects with that lead attacker as another 60-plus goes after both of them. Okay, now back to the AFIB. So Saturday morning, I got to the race with plenty of time. In fact, I'm an early riser. I got there probably 2 to 2.5 hours before my start. With that amount of lead time, there was a lot of downtime. So I just sat in the car, actually laid in the car and just relaxed, closed my eyes for a bit. Because I had done leg openers the day before, and because this was an easy start for the road race, I was not worried about having a long warm-up. During the race, I was as conservative as possible. But there was times when I needed to do a bunch of work, and that was toward the end when we were doing a big chase. If you haven't seen that race video, I'll have it linked in the description below. After the race, I had my recovery drink, and while we're waiting around for the results and for the ultimate podium shot, I started in on the meal I prepared, which included a lot of carbohydrates, and of course a lot of protein. Later on, I get home, take a shower, do some self-massage, recount lusty bike adventures to the fetching Mrs. Cycling Greek, and then I go to bed. And then this is where I start to get concerned. When I went to bed that night, I was still amped. My heart rate was a little accelerated. I would sleep for an hour, maybe 90 minutes at a time, and I would do this multiple times. And then finally, somewhere between 12 and 1 a.m., I was able to stay asleep. I may have experienced a palpitation or two that evening, but it's not something that I really remember. It was not a foregone conclusion that I was going to go to the race the next day. It all depended on how I woke up. I woke up rested. My heart was fine. All was good. I grabbed my stuff and I got to the race earlier than I needed to. So now, AFIB-wise, I was going to see how my body was going to react to the race, not only after the race, but that evening and the next day. Back to the action on the screen. Velo King Scott Hollander attacks. He's going after the breakaway that's up the road. Now we have the two original breakaways and the third one that's chasing after them, and he's just about to make contact. One of Scott's teammates comes to the front to monitor things. I am still riding toward the front in order to create a buffer in case I need it on these climbs. And of course, as I was mentioning before, if there's a gap, I don't want to be on the wrong side of that gap. I am hoping Scott makes it, not only because he's a good friend of mine, but also because he has teammates, and if he's up there, then his teammates, along with whatever other teammates of the breakaway that's up ahead, and I'm not sure if there are any. So with 4 in the break and 2 additional teammates back here in the pack, there's going to be about as many 65s as there are going to be 60s. And that could mean an easier race for me. And nothing wrong with that, especially since I'm breaking one of my AFIB rules. You will notice with my rear camera in the upper right hand corner that we're all lined out. You'll also notice with my front camera that the only person in the front that's pulling is Scott's teammate. Now, he's not drilling it. If you look at my heart rate, I'm in the mid 120s, so I'm real comfortable. So he's trying to go fast enough where the others aren't going to be inclined to attack him, and slow enough where he's not going to catch his teammate Scott, who's trying to get up to the break. About 40 seconds later, there's an attack from a Body Concepts rider, and Body Concepts has about 2 people in the 60 plus and 1 in the 65s. If he is able to connect, then I'll definitely have an easier ride. But that is not to be, as the Alto Velo rider who's pulling in the front ups his pace just a bit, bringing back that Body Concepts rider. The specter of an easier ride for me is starting to wane. To make things worse, if you look up ahead, you'll see Scott is starting to fail in his bid to get up to that leading break of 3. About 40 seconds later, Jeff Quall, who's Scott's teammate and also the winner of the points for the 60 plus last year, goes to the front. He's telling his teammate to get on his wheel because Scott's not going to make it, and so he's going to pull the brake back. Now things are going to get faster. While I'm on the butt end of this, I really appreciate the tactics and the sacrifice that Jeff is doing. He's a bigger guy. His 2 teammates are smaller guys and more classical climbers, so he's sacrificing whatever chances he has for his team. About 4 minutes later of us being all lined out, Jeff finally pulls off. But that doesn't mean the speed's going to slacken. The next person just takes over. Almost 5 minutes later on another little climb, I'm doing what I can to hold my position. Over the top that's just ahead, there's this little descent, and that's going to give me just a little bit of rest. I know that if I don't keep up that pressure, losing positions, setting aside getting dropped, is going to put me in a tougher position. Fortunately, I am able to hold position. Jumping forward a few minutes, we are on the last long low-grade climb before we drop from the Pine Flat foothills down to the valley floor. You'll notice there was a reshuffling on another little climb that I didn't show in this video, where now I'm in the middle of the pack. There is surging in the front. There's a gap that's created. Now I'm on the wrong end of the gap. I think that even if I was with those guys, I still couldn't hang on with them. I'm running out of energy. Or rather, because of the way I felt, I'm running out of muscle. If I can just get to the top with what remains of this group, then I'll have a chance to reconnect. You'll notice my heart rate in the upper left-hand corner in the graphics that I'm about 145. Now my max is about 164 based on yesterday. But like I was saying earlier, this feels more muscular in terms of me being able to keep up. It could be that doing 2 road races in a row, that's something that my body just wasn't ready for. You'll notice that pretty much everyone is in front of me. There's only one person back there, and he's going to pass me up in about 3 seconds, and there he goes. Now, I know there's more people in back of me that have been dropped. And of course, I can go do the rest of the race, but I'm thinking, this is my second race. I've broken my AFIB rules, so the car is in back of me just a few miles. I think I'm just going to turn around. And that's what I ended up doing. I turned around. This ended up being 27 miles of racing. So I figure, that's like a long crit. So I'm good. I went back to the car, had my recovery drink, had my meal, and most importantly, my heart was just fine. I got home, I did some yard work. Most of the yard work was sitting on a lawn tractor, so that was good enough for me. Hope you enjoyed this video and that you got something out of it, and that you realize that you don't have to have an AFIB to take care of yourself. Remember to check in the description below for my Strava link on this race and for a couple videos for you to check out. As always, remember, because it helps the channel, comment, like, subscribe, the Cycling Greek.